So I finally got to give the new Lucky Pants a try, and I gotta say, I was both impressed and not impressed at the same time. Also, I'm going to apologize for the echo going on right now. My office is kind of a nightmare at the moment. Lucky Pants got a bit of a redesign with Season of the Lost, where if you swap to a fully loaded hand cannon in the kinetic slot or a hand cannon matching the element of your subclass, you get a stacking damage buff every time you hit a target for a short amount of time, stacking up to 10 times. This bonus damage gets really insane at the highest stacks, but the duration is not very long at all, meaning at the most, you're going to be getting about a magazine's worth of shooting on average per buff. Lucky Pants also have a built-in holster mod to slowly reload your hand cannon, but I would just rather reload it myself. After the damage buff expires, you cannot benefit from it for 10 seconds. This is a very fun exotic to use now, and there are 4 exotic hand cannons in particular that the community has highlighted: Malfeasance, Crimson Last Word, and Ariana's Vow. Malfeasance is highlighted because of its very large magazine and bonus damage against Taken. You can fire as fast as possible, and you're not going to run out of shots before the damage buff runs out, although the exotic perk on Malfeasance does not get the bonus damage from Lucky Pants, which is a little bit of a bummer. Crimson is noted because it's a 3-shot burst hand cannon, so it's firing a lot of shots, regenerating your health on headshot kills, and also refilling the magazine. Even if you're shooting a high health target, you will still be able to get through an entire magazine, and the bonus damage stacks very quickly. Last Word is noted because it can fire very quickly, and you can reload dodge to get 8 shots back in the magazine, allowing you to deal a lot of potential damage. Ariana's Vow is noted because, well, it's a hand cannon that hits like a truck, although you do need to be a gunslinger to get the benefit. Now, when Lucky Pants first got tweaked, I saw a couple of videos on Reddit of people using these in the most ideal possible conditions. Big target, it's not moving, divinity's on, damage buffs, the whole 9. And in those scenarios, yeah, it's really impressive how much burst damage you can drop on a target. Combine that with the fact that you could also be using something like Last Word and still have your special and heavy slot filled with Cartesian Coordinate or Null Composure and a Threaded Needle with Vorpal. You know, you pop some hand cannon shots, you let the damage buff come back while using Particle Deconstruction Fusion spam, and then you come back to it. In a raid environment, blasting away at Templar's face, for example, sure, this is the ideal scenario to make something like this happen. In terms of moment-to-moment generic gameplay, this is some of the most extreme overkill that I've ever seen in Destiny, and honestly, it's kind of stressful to use. We always talk about DPS, total damage, and we usually equate an exotic's power with how much damage it can deal. This exotic provides an insane boost of power very frequently, and I can't really say I'm the most interested in using it in regular moment-to-moment gameplay. This is an exotic that works much better in a high-level solo or 3-person setting. While using these guns in the seasonal activity, it felt more stressful than fun trying to gather clips because things just die so easily. I mean, look at some of this footage right now. It feels like every other time I try to proc Lucky Pants, things just die right in front of me, and I'm just panicking to shoot anything while I still have the buff. That's not fun at all. So, not only are you trying to keep track of how many bullets are in your gun, watching the timer, and finding worthy targets to shoot, you also have to deal with the variance of 5 other people doing anything and everything to kill as much as possible. I don't really recommend the average player try to stress themselves out in this way in low-tier content. Not only that, but you're overkilling the crap out of regular red bar enemies. Overkill damage is not important in Destiny. If a drag has 100 health, it doesn't matter if you deal 102 or 10,000. It's gonna die in one shot. So I ran some 1320 Lost sectors with each of the highlighted hand cannons to see how the experience was, trying to focus on using the hand cannons to kill significant targets like champions and the boss, and also any sort of trash mobs that I could kill. And it was both impressive and a little annoying depending on what gun I was using. Definitely takes some getting used to. The one that I actually liked the least was Last Word, which sucks because Last Word is inherently a very fun weapon to use. But on mouse and keyboard, it struggles a little bit compared to using a controller, getting some of that aim assist. Hitting crits on things like servitors wasn't the easiest experience, even with them being stunned. When I did get those crits, it was awesome, but it was pretty inconsistent. The boss was a little bit easier to get crits on, although getting close was very difficult due to this particular boss. I also don't have the greatest hunter muscle memory, so getting the timing of that reload dodge to continue shooting took a little bit of getting used to since that timing is pretty tight. On top of all of that, the aim down sight experience on Last Word is pretty bad, and the range on the gun is terrible, so whenever you don't have the damage buff, anything outside of arm's reach basically requires you to wait for the buff if you want to stand a chance at killing that target. Obviously, having a divinity bubble to shoot at is going to put this thing through the roof in terms of damage, though. Crimson and Malfeasance were pretty similar experiences. I really like Malfeasance as a gun, and because it's a faster firing, not as hard hitting hand cannon, I didn't feel like I was doing insane overkill damage on trash mobs, so that was pretty nice. I was getting one taps cross map towards the highest end of the damage perk, and it felt pretty good. If the perk actually got the damage bonus, that might be a bit too much, but man, I was really hoping for it regardless. Crimson wasn't too shabby, and if you're killing trash mobs, you won't run out of ammo. Plus, the healing is nice too, but you know, that's just Crimson's exotic perk. I just like Malfeasance more as a gun, that's why I prefer it a little bit more, but Crimson definitely has some strong advantages with that healing. These guns also felt a bit more free to use the perk on. I could swap to them whenever I wanted, and it was basically never a bad time to do so. It gave you a lot of freedom. With the 1320 Lost Sector being somewhat difficult compared to most other parts of the game, it didn't feel like super overkill when I was one-tapping trash mobs because they tend to have a decent amount of health. I think Malfeasance pulls ahead in that regard because trying to spread Crimson's burst shots across multiple targets can be kind of tough to do. Ariana's Vow, on the other hand, is just a truck of a gun. This Lost Sector had Solar Burn active at the time, so I ran a different run without Solar Burn, and it was still pretty beefy. What I liked is that because Ariana's Vow is a weapon that you're really not using to kill trash mobs with, I didn't feel as much pressure to make sure I was always using the perk. I could simply use it when I needed it, and I would never really have to think about it. Auto-loading holster really helps this as well. I never needed to think about reloading my gun at all. But as a result, the trash mob killing experience was significantly slower compared to using Crimson and Malfeasance, at least in the Moon Lost Sector. The Dreaming City one was a bit different. The champion killing experience is incredibly simple using solely Ariana's Vow, whereas without the damage boost from Lucky Pants, I needed to hit every single crit in a row without losing first glance in order to have a smooth experience. The main problem with Ariana's otherwise is that you're locked to being a gunslinger, so if you don't like that, then, you know, that's out. As always with guns or things that are supposed to make certain weapons feel like a 2-in-1 experience, there's pressure to use the perk and your primary on big targets instead of using a special or heavy weapon, potentially resulting in you never using them at all. Symmetry has this kind of problem where you want to use the main mode to stack the buff and then use the alt fire as kind of like a special weapon. In these Lost Sectors, I was essentially using my hand cannons as special weapons with my auto rifle being the primary. It's technically a double primary loadout, but it doesn't act like one since the hand cannon is serving as the special weapon when the perk is active. But it has infinite ammo thanks to the primary ammo changes with Season of the Lost. So when you think about it, you sort of have an unlimited ammo special weapon. It's just you can only use it for 5 seconds every 10 seconds. Another issue, which isn't really Lucky Pants' fault, is that in Season of the Lost, there are no anti-champion mods for hand cannons. Now, this isn't insurmountable to overcome. You can do a hand cannon primary with an anti-barrier auto special weapon or unstoppable fusion, or an overload bow with an overload sword. Nothing says you need to rock all 3 anti-champion mods at once. But in this season, that might push some people away from using Lucky Pants in the endgame. I do want to revisit Lucky Pants once GM Nightfalls come out, since I believe Masters and GMs are where primary hand cannons and Lucky Pants will really have some room to shine. Even, just a generic legendary hand cannon will have some room. Trash mobs and GMs have a lot of health, and being able to just annihilate a few of them once every, 10 to 15 seconds is going to be pretty valuable. I got a taste of that doing 1320 Lost Sectors, which are about 15 to 20 levels beneath me right now. But I worry a little bit about the stop and start feeling that people might get. It's probably not the most fun experience to do damage for 5 seconds and then have to wait 10 to 15 seconds to do it again, no matter how quickly you get to kill enemies as a result while those 5 seconds are ticking. Ariana's Vow will solve some of those anti-champion mod woes, but you will have to be a gunslinger, which isn't a bad thing, it's just rare. Most people would rather play a utility role in GMs unless there are multiple of the same class, because most people want to play it safe. There's no bonus for doing a GM Nightfall fast. Hunters would probably want to stay on Night Stalker or Revenant because they are utility-based and defensive-based, and those traits are actually important in GM content compared to the rest of the game. In terms of raid content and what kind of DPS this is capable of, yeah, it's really high. You can get to some insane damage numbers using something like Last Word hitting all crits. Do I expect the meta to shift to 5 Hunters and a Warlock using Divinity? No, I don't. Even if this is killing a raid boss in 5 seconds, 5 Hunters and 1 Warlock is never going to be the norm. It's just way too specific, and as we covered with the fusion rifle damage video, 1K and even just regular linear fusions like Threaded Needle with Vorpal, they're doing just fine. I think it's a fun novelty thing to go do once, but beyond that, So overall, I mean, Lucky Pants are massively improved compared to what they used to be, no doubt about it. But in my opinion, the lower the difficulty of the content, the lower the value I think Lucky Pants have. I just don't think there's a reason to bother using them if you're in, like, the Strike playlist, for example. It's just going to be insane overkill except on maybe the final boss, in which case, just switch to that at the very end if you want to, As enemies get more and more health based on the activity that you're in, that's when it'll get more value. Again, we'll revisit Lucky Pants in October when GM Nightfalls come out. Thank you very much for watching. Sorry about the echo again, and I'll see you next time.